Hi, welcome to another episode of Somebody You Should Know. And I'm your host, Leon Wilson. My friends, it's my pleasure to introduce you to today's special guest, Jenny Lee. Jenny is a life coach with a passion for helping women tap into their inner strength and find joy in every day. With her unique approach and contagious energy, she's transforming the lives of women everywhere, one morning at a time. So sit back and relax and get ready to be inspired. And as we welcome Jenny Lee to Somebody You Should Know. That is so crazy. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, and I love your intro music.
That is crazy. That's what my daughter calls that cringy. She says, "Dad, it's so cringy." I'm like, "Oh
That's
no."
why it's so good.
Well, listen, ever since we had that initial conversation, I've been looking forward to this. I'm intrigued about your story. So, Jenny, where are you at today? What's going on in Jenny Lee's life today?
I like that. Thank you. What's going on today? I think I'm at a place today where I feel so much more connected with with my inner self, with my heart, and with my soul. And I make sure that I'm aware that um, I'm maintaining that connection. And yeah, and I only know that, I only learned how to do that because I had been disconnected from that for a long time. But this is also what I learned about life is that it's like we're dispatched, right, in this incarnation, um, not knowing anything, and we are to find our way back to ourselves, back to home. And it's like a game. For me, it's like decades of games, right, of all of these things that separated me from who I really am, right, from when I was growing up in a very conservative environment, the religion, the culture, and then the conditioning. And once I stepped out of it, that was the trick. Okay, so what are you going to do now? What are you going to do to find your way? And that seemed to have always been the game for me. And, here I am now. I only found that way, I only found that path because I spent more time with myself, because I used joy and fun as a compass to find my way home, if that makes sense at this point.
It does. It does. It begs the question, and I get your point about life being a game because, in a way, it is, and it can be a very serious game, and through that you have fun and all the parts of a game. And sometimes you can check out, you can lose before the game is over. So in this game of life that we travel in, where are you at today on the board? Where are you? I understand about your the mindset in that you had to kind of push everything else out. It's about getting yourself in shape first, getting yourself prepared, knowing who you are, right? If I'm
Mhm.
understanding, it's figuring out who you are first, and then from that you're able to help others. So I would guess that requires a lot of introspection,
Mhm.
looking at who you are, how you became to be the person you are. How did you do that?
Yeah, isn't that interesting? I think for everyone, there is a time um, when they need something, and then the universe or whatever higher power, like their way of interfering in your life is by planting these little seeds in you. And for me, I felt that was when I was in grad school, and that time I had no idea about meditation, spirituality, nothing like that at all. And then my professor, um, she was teaching me human capacity, and she taught me about Eckhart Tolle and spirituality and all these kinds of realm that I had no idea of, but I felt like that was the seeds of it, right? And then years later down the line, when I felt that things are starting not to work for me, and then when I started to get connected with those things that she taught me, meditation, spirituality, of like, my own being that is bigger than my, three-dimensional self right now, um, I realized that there's something bigger. There's more possibility. And so that I felt like that was the path that I kept walking on. And yeah, of course, that it had its challenges, right? And it brought me to um, a place where I had to face my own fears, and I had to push my own, the boundaries that the conditioning had put on me and the walls that's been built. And here I am now, in a world, where there's just like so many possibilities that I had never thought of before. Like I got to that point, and it was pretty much like, what everybody would call the dark night of the soul, right? When everything is just like, it felt so desperate, and I just had no choice but to step out of this bubble that was imprisoning me.
Yeah.
I grew up in Indonesia,
Okay.
and I don't know if you're familiar with Indonesia, but it's a predominantly Muslim community. But I was also grew up in a Chinese family who was also very conservative. And I also went to Catholic church. I went to Catholic schools from
Hold on.
kindergarten
Hold on. Hold on. Hold on.
to
Hold
college.
on.
And so,
You hold on. You're telling me so you grew up in Indonesia,
mhm,
Muslim country,
mhm,
basically,
predominantly Muslim. Yeah.
basically. Uh Catholic? Those
Um,
two things don't quite go
yeah,
together.
we're the minority. So we're I well not I won't I don't really associate myself with any cultures, but I grew up in a Chinese family,
In the
that
Chinese
is
family,
like 6% of the population. Very small, like we're a pocket. And my father observed the observed the Catholic faith, and my mom was actually Buddhist, but they sent us my sister and I to Catholic school since we're kindergarten, and we went to Catholic schools, the elementary school and high school and then college, because oh yeah,
yeah.
they needed to plant the fear of God in us,
So so
basically.
so your mom and dad, I'm sure they're trying to look out for you. They obviously
Yeah,
they
yeah.
you're well rounded. You're well rounded, and of course obviously that gave you an some knowledge on spirituality coming from different points of view. And
Hmm.
so I can see that. I can see that. So when you became a teenager, so you have these different types of teachings. When you became a teenager, did you lean either way, or did each one of the various religions kind of cancel each other out?
That's a really interesting question because I grew up with all these religions, right? Islam, Catholicism, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, even. So the country that I grew up in actually accepts all these religions, but they're minority, and the 80%, 90% is actually Islam. But no, I feel that culture is it plays most part in the way life plays, in it in the whole culture. Religion, because I feel that, okay, like Islam and be Christianity and Buddhism, they all really teach love and caring for each other, and tolerance and acceptance. For some reason, the culture dominates most of it, and so instead of like accepting each other, right, loving each other, and dignifying each other, it's mostly just tradition. So I grew up with a lot of shaming, right? Of of my own being as a woman, and there's like a lot of conflicts between my oh, like my being, like being born as Chinese and Christian, and that shaming comes from the Indonesian Muslim, and there's also like a lot of shaming coming from the Catholicism of me being a woman, like talking about what I should be as a woman, and all of the sexual and body shaming, that I was a sinner and that I'm not worthy, and like as a woman, there's just like we only cause problems basically, and as Chinese, there's just like all these rules and regulations of what I shouldn't be. So instead of focusing on our capacity as humans, it's more like regulating us as women to be, say, I don't know, baby machines, right? The homemakers in the culture, and the wives and the mothers, instead of like bringing us up and reminding us what our capacity is as human beings.
So
Uh,
you grew up with a lot of stereotypes,
a lot of
stereotypes
stereotypes. Yeah.
about women, and I must say that uh, there's obviously a woman's movement, and a lot have changed, but it's that saying that the more things change, the more they stay the same. Um,
Mm,
there still is a lot of that. Now, there is a lot of successful women out there that have uh, laid a path for women to follow. They've
mm,
Women have reached the highest levels, in all fields, business, and all these different things, athletics, you name it. There's a woman at the top. So a lot of those glass ceilings have been broken. However, with the advent of TikTok and Facebook and all these other social medias, there's still a lot of body shaming and stuff like that. But I want to talk more to your point on um, being Chinese and the expectation of your appearance as
mm.
a female. Um, were you ever pushed toward like education and success and all these type of things, or were you really pushed more toward marriage, bring us a good son-in-law, have babies, extend the family, that type of thing? What it was it that?
A couple of things that came to mind when I told my mom that I feel that it's so much easier if I would just be free of any kinds of like expectations, being in a relationship or being in a marriage. And that was, I remember what, I was 19 or in my early 20s, and my mom said, well, what's the use of you being a woman if
Oh,
you are not married and you don't produce any children? So there's that on reproduction,
oh my
right?
goodness.
My reproductive, like, whatever purposes. And when I got a divorce, the first thing that my mom said was, you brought shame to the family, not asking me if I was okay. So, I don't know if that tells you about the culture. But yeah, I was taught that if you don't have a partner or if you don't have children, then you would live a miserable rest of your life. That's, the culture that I grew up in.
Let, okay,
That
well,
answers the question.
it did, and it,
Yeah.
it it gave me like 50 more questions because now, and I remember asking you this when we were doing the interview about it. It wasn't an arranged marriage. It was not
No.
arranged. But so when did you meet your husband? When was that?
So I met my ex-husband when I was in Jakarta, and we were in the same friend circle. And that time I was teaching, and he happened to be a mutual friend of a colleague. And we just kind of ran into each other in the same parties, and that's when we met and we started
Okay.
dating. And I was in my early 20s that time. Uh, and I think my family just thought that, oh, you have a viable boyfriend.
Okay. Okay.
um, yeah, okay. And I think at that point, I don't know, maybe it was chemistry, but and I honestly, I really did not know myself that time.
Ah.
So yeah, I think that was a point, right? When you're so conditioned, when you were being told what you're supposed to be, what you need to want, what you should want at this point of life, you just kind of like, okay, I'm 24, 25 now. According to the code, in this culture that I grew up in, I'm supposed to be on this path right now, and I felt, okay, let's just do it. And it was nice to feel accepted that way, right? To be celebrated because you're graduating, or you've passed like certain threshold that is validated by your culture.
Is that
Acceptance,
do,
validation.
do you feel like because I have a similar type of story in that I got married when I was very young. I was 21, 22, and I came from a family. Everyone in my family was married. I mean, I didn't have
Mhm.
any relatives that were single parents. Everyone was married. And so I grew up, and of course, I'm supposed to be married. And so when I did meet someone, I said, "Oh, this is the one." So I'm supposed to be married. And so I got married. And maybe 5, 6 years in, I realized, hold on, I don't even know who I am. And if I don't
Mm,
know who I am, how can I pick the right mate for me because I don't even know what I want? Did you have a similar experience like that, or is the reason you got married part of just like what I did, kind of like the programming that comes from your parents? This is what you should do, and somewhere in the back of your mind, you found someone that you had things in common with, and this is it.
yeah, that's exactly what it was. Because like I remember even during the time that we were dating, it was already toxic, and I could already feel it. There was a lot of abuse, like verbal abuse and emotional abuse. But I went on with the relationship anyway. And then, oh my gosh, I remember it was like a couple of days before our wedding. My ex husband was slut shaming me for, I don't know, like telling something to his mother that he did not like, that his mother, like, no. And, but I went on with the wedding anyway. And I just felt like that's what the women in that culture is taught to compromise. Is that okay when you're having an argument with your spouse or your partner, that means they care about you. That means there's like, some kind of like, fire or like whatever healthy dynamic that's going on, right? And that's what I was, kind of like going with, because I thought that's how it was supposed to be. And although deep in my heart, like, deep, in your gut, like I knew that this is not right, but I just had to go with it because this is what is expected of me.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. What happened? Well, take me to the end of the relationship. What was the last straw, or what was it? How did you know? And this is with that overview of the game again. How did
hmm,
you know that this was it right here?
I think after years and years of emotional abuse, verbal abuse, at some point, um, there was this one day where he placed hand on me, um, and it was pretty bad. Um, our toddler son was witnessing everything when there was like, all this violence, physical violence, and yeah, and that was it. That was my reason to just get out of it. But before that, it was also years of emotional abuse and happiness and probably misunderstanding and lack of understanding, like lack of communication between both of us. But I mean, I can't really lay all the blame on him either, because it also, like with me being unable to communicate my needs, and things just kind of piled up. And at some point, things kind of blew up, and that happened, the physical violence. But it also, that was like after 10 years.
Oh, so you
um,
you were married for 10 years?
yeah, that was a couple of months after, about 4 months after our 10th anniversary.
Let me ask you this then. In looking back on it now, would you had ended it sooner?
Hmm. Would have, okay, if I had known better, if I had known what I had known now, very possible. I think back then I was just going with whatever I felt was expected of me, because I did not want to bring shame to my family. I did not want to disappoint anybody. And there was this comfort zone that had formed around me that I was so scared to break, that I was so scared to step out of. And so I just kept going with it. But I felt that, whatever happened, um, that day with the physical violence, it was a gift from the universe for me to um, break out, so I have a new path for myself. And here I am.
Interesting. So our cultures are so different. Um, in in the Chinese culture, I know, and not just in the Chinese culture, in many cultures, the Muslim culture, males are dominant. They're
Mm,
dominant. They look to be the chosen ones, and all of that, and all of that. Your mom and dad, did you see any type of physical abuse growing up?
oh, yeah. Now, here's the thing, too, about me getting used to being like staying in that um, kind of relationship for so long, it is because I got used to watching my parents
Yeah.
in that dynamic of toxic relationship. Like, yeah, they abuse each other. It's not just like my dad like beating my mom. It was all my mom just like throwing stuff at my dad, and um, it was just a very violent and abusive and toxic relationship. And I grew up being normalized to
Yeah.
that relationship. And I would be told, growing up, it's like, oh, if he's jealous of you, that means he cares. If you have an argument, that means, oh, something is alive in your relationship. You should appreciate that. But I completely understand. That's how they grew up too. They did not have the tools
Yes.
to, to learn what it is to have a healthy relationship, and so that kind of passed down to me. And even before the marriage, I was in a series of toxic relationships
Okay.
that I did not know of, and I just thought that that's how relationships should be, right?
Okay.
It is only when I finally got to spend time with myself for a few years, and I built relationship with myself because with the help of my other female friends, and that's how I got to know, like the best unconditional, the most generous kind of love. Then that's what I realized, that that's the kind of love that I deserve,
Okay.
you
Now,
know,
how
and
how
that's how
did
I
you
found my peace. Hmm.
how did you so now during this time that you were married, you had became a teacher. A
Hmm.
teacher of what? What were you?
Oh,
What?
I teach English
Okay.
for
And you
high
did
school,
grade school?
grade school. Yeah.
Okay. So you're a teacher at grade school and you go through this marriage, this 10-year marriage, and you really experiencing the same thing that you saw growing up. So it's
Mhm.
almost normal in your life, and your parents are telling you, your mom especially trying to tell you how to navigate this thing. These are the things that you should be doing, or you need to stop doing this. Or she's trying to help you in using the tools that she has. All right.
Mhm.
So you get out of the relationship. You finally had enough. You get out of the relationship. You're still teaching, and now you I'm sure you're depressed, you're hurting, all of this. Now you meet up with a group of friends. Now,
Mhm.
are the friends that you become your friends, your confidants, are they do they have similar experiences? Did you share different experiences, marriages, relationships, stuff like that? And you
Yeah.
find similarities?
Yeah, that is really interesting because most of my friends are single. And they have been either divorced or they've got out of some toxic, relationships. And we just kind of like, got together. But yeah, you're right. Like, um, what you mentioned about like, me, like, in the past, like, in the marriage being depressed and unhappy, and all of that was affecting my capacity of being a mother because of all these expectations that fell on me as a woman, right? And then at some point, I just got overwhelmed, and things just kind of like blew up in my face, and that resulted in my being a mother, being incapacitated, and then the divorce, right? But like when I got out and I got out of the environment that I was married in, and here I am in like a bigger town, and I met all of these other women that I bonded with. Interestingly, they do have similar experiences, whether in the past or recently, and we're kind of comforting each other. you know, and it was so much easier for us to be ourselves. And it was so much easier for us to just like give what we have, um, and enjoying the moment and be present with each other and appreciating each other's companion and personality and each other's being. Um, then we realized that, like all we are, like, is really just like, this form of divinity that we did not know that we are before, right? Because we're nurturing each other, we're enjoying each other's company. Um, and at some point, I got used to that kind of love. I got used to that kind of acceptance, of just like, being us. So that kind of created this different standard of the kind of acceptance and love that I deserve. Does that make sense?
Oh, it definitely does. I love the way that you put that. It's almost like an awakening
Yeah.
of being with other people who went through similar experiences, and you kind of come together in a place where you can be truly honest, for one,
Mhm.
and through that honesty you develop a bond like that, and it helps you to shine a light on who you are. I'm sure you
Mhm.
had many conversations and where you were able to speak freely,
Yeah.
without any type of backlash from your friends. Well, tell me this then. So you have this friendship and like-minded people, and it's probably changed your mind about a certain things, um,
Mhm.
and it helps you to reflect on your life those 10 years. So how do you move forward?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So at first, yeah, I should probably also mention that, that ability to be ourselves, that the ability to be myself, right? That honesty with myself, and that was it. Um, I think it was this point in my life when I felt I needed to reevaluate what's going on, because right after the divorce, I was still unhappy, with my job, or like, with everything in my life, and I was still under, this conditioning of like how things should be, but I was still very unhappy. Um, I think it was just like this one moment when I intuitively just turned on the music, right? There was this job that I did not like, still teaching, but I hated it. I hated having to wake up in the morning to this heavy feeling, this heavy energy, with these obligations. And I was carrying still all these energies from my marriage, and, from the way that I grew up, that my life was all just like the shoulds, right? All instead of what makes me happy. And one morning I woke up a little earlier and I could not go back to sleep. And okay, what could I do? Like, I'm already awake. Um, and my mornings were usually just heavy. And, you know, I was just looking forward to the worst, in the day, because I was still teaching in this inner city school. Um, I, okay, I played the music and I just moved to the music and it felt good, and I did that a little longer and I did that a little longer, until I had to get ready to go to work. And then I thought that was fun, right? And so the next morning I thought, okay, what if I do this a little more intentionally? What if I play the music a little more intentionally and I actually enjoy it, right? And so that was it the next morning. And the next morning, I repeat that. And at some point, I actually recognized that there is so much joy and there's so much fun that comes with me moving myself with the music, which is something that I hadn't done for a long time. Um, yeah, and I noticed the change, like, how it uplifted my mood, because then I would, after I've done all those movement, to the music, and I actually came to school, I actually came to work so much happier, because before, it was just me doing my work. All right, get the students to do whatever they want, whatever, do the work, and then I go home, I get my paycheck or whatever, like, that motion, right? Um, and after some time of doing that, I realized that my interaction with the students changed. I could actually interact with them, and we could actually have a pleasant conversation. So that really changed my perspective of, like, okay, maybe it's something that I've done for myself that made me happy. And because I'm filled with, that fun, with that happiness, that and because of that, I could step out in the world and interact people from that place of happiness, right? And so that just kind of evolved into, so at first I would wake up 10 minutes earlier just so I could dance for a little bit, and then the next couple of weeks I would add 5 more minutes so I could do the dancing a little bit longer, so I could have a little more fun. Then it kind of evolved to, like, all this, okay, now I want to have a little more challenge, like, okay, the push-up challenge, or, like, some challenging dance steps that I could do. And now I have, like, a couple of hours of enjoyable morning routines where I feel like I'm nourishing myself. Because of that, I would come to work with, like, this open heart, and I'm available for anything. Like, nothing would annoy me, and that made me such a better parent, a better friend, um, just a better everything, because my perspective about life, the filter that I have about life, has changed so much. Before, it was, right, shaped by my conditioning, that life is all about, like, what I should do, and obligations. And now, you know what? Life is the way I want to shape it. Life is as much fun as I want to have.
I believe that music is it speaks directly to the soul, and
Mm,
it sounds like that through your upbringing and your marriage and all these different things together, it kind of robbed you of your joy, that it was buried deep, and that music that first morning uh, really spoke to your soul, and it allowed that to open up, and the more that your soul started to speak, because I believe that we're all spiritual beings, and that the world, well, the world is a lie, because what you see is not really what's true, but the world can really beat you down and teach you a lot of these falsehoods, and it can cover up who you really are as a human being, as a person, as a spiritual being. And it sounds like somehow that music that one day unlocked something in you, uh, not really put anything inside of you, but let something inside of you out.
I could mention the 4 pillars that I
Please,
developed,
please,
um,
yes,
because
please.
like, in all these years that I've been doing that. So first, emotional. Emotional is probably, like, the top one, because when you're emotionally um, healthy, that's like the top. Like everything else takes care of itself. Because yeah, we are spirit, like what you said, right? So when you're emotionally high vibrating, when you're emotionally healthy, and next is the physical. Because yeah, of course, when I'm dancing, when I'm practicing yoga, I'm also keeping shape, right? But another thing that you could do is also I um, juice, right? Like, with all, you could juice anything like carrots or celery or lemons. And they're all just like beautiful plants and nourishment for yourself, right? Movement
Right.
and nourishments. And then intellectual. So while I'm doing all these things, like the juicing or the movement, there's also audiobook that I'm playing that I feel is okay, enriching me intellectually.
Oh, wow.
Or if you could even do if you want to learn languages, 5 minutes a day, right? And if you put it all together in 2 weeks, that's like a lot of words that you could learn. Or if you want to learn guitar, right? 5 minutes. And for me, I like learning like I like to practice my muscle memories. So it's either some challenging salsa moves, the steps, or martial art moves. Like I like doing that because I'm pretty physical. And then there's also intellectual. I'm sorry, spiritual. We address the intellectual, spiritual. So it's really important for me to still practice my meditation and breath work. Um, and I discourage everybody from listening to the news in the morning. And
Uh,
it's so good for you to listen to just inspirational stories, an audiobook
I
or
agree.
podcast,
Yes.
something that lifts your spirit up. And it's like, oh, wow, look at all the possibilities in the world,
Yes.
right? From other people's inspirational stories, like your podcast, for example, like your show. And
Please do.
um
Yes.
exactly, be inspired in the morning instead of be brought down by, I don't know, like whatever tragedy there is, because the world is not, that's not all the world there is, because there's so many beautiful inspiring things, which is the reason why you're here,
Right.
right? And learn about that, learn more about that. So those are the four things.
So what I'm hearing though, did you stop teaching?
No, interestingly, this is what I would like to also tell people, like
Mhm.
how I used to hate it, right? Because
Yes.
it's like coming to work with, like, all of these kids coming from challenging environments and coming to school, and they need so much love, but I was so tired I could not give that attention that they needed. But because I have nourished myself first, I have found what made me happy, like that first thing in the morning,
Ah,
right?
yes.
Be inspired and like generated that joy within me from the music, from my movement, from my nourishment. Um, and I come to school like with a with a different kind of spirit. And when they interact with me, I respond to them so much differently from years ago when I was depleted, right? And
Oh,
it's like, yeah, so my relationship with them became so much more loving, so much more positive. And even the way that I approach my work, before it was just like, I just want to get my work done and then go home. And now I look at my work and I question, how can I make it more fun? How can I get the kids more engaged?
yeah.
Right? Instead of just, oh, I'm gonna do my work, get my paycheck, and go home. you know,
Well, I can
that
tell
kind
you,
of.
I can just tell you that I've had an opportunity to be in schools as well,
Mm,
and was able to see a lot of different teachers, and it's exactly what you're saying. You know, a lot of the teachers are. They're overworked, overwhelmed with the conditions of the school, but add with that their personal lives, what's going on in their actual lives, because a lot of times people don't realize that teachers are human. And just like
Yeah.
we're struggling and we're going through all these different things on our jobs and stuff like that, teachers not only are struggling with life and everything that is, then they have 20, 30 little ones who are individually dealing with trauma. And so
Oh,
now you put them
exactly.
all in a room. So now you have 20, 30 little ones dealing with trauma. And then the teacher is dealing with a form of trauma because they're struggling. They're trying to make this thing work. And that is that doesn't work. But now you're still teaching and you found a way to change your entire life. You've changed your whole outlook on life. And what I'm under, so you created a system. You took this thing, put it all together, and you created a system. What is it, and how do people get it, and how do they do it? What is it? Four pillars. I got four pillars, but you created a system. What did you decide to do with it?
It's interesting you call that a system. Because for me, it's really
Mm,
a base within me that I solidified every day of my life, right? Like, since when I started to realize that I am the generator of my joy, I'm the generator of my happiness, and I'm the generator of that stability within me, um, and that nourishment.
mm,
And so when I have that, I don't know if you call that armor, if you call that the solid ground of your own being, and your own being is really, somebody who wants to have fun, somebody who wants to serve, somebody who wants to give their best. That's who you truly are. And I just
mm,
like found a way to connect with that, by consistently connecting with myself, by consistently connecting with my joy, right? And that brings me home to who I really am. And I'm just going out in the world, including the school, where I'm supposed to connect with other kids, and I'm just bringing out my true self to them. I'm just bringing out who I really am, you know, like to serve, like how I'm supposed to serve, how I'm like my true self. For me to um so I believe that everyone, when they come into this world, when they come into this incarnation, there is a purpose for them, and that purpose is really service, right? They are bringing their own true self, their own light into this world,
uh-huh.
but because of all this conditioning, all this separation, right? But like, remember what I told you about the game?
Yes.
Like, the game is for us to go back to that light, go back home. And when you're back in that light, when you're back in that home, like, there it is. Like, you're just giving it back to the world. And
Oh,
that's how I feel in school. I'm just like, oh, I've come back home. And right
wow.
now I'm just having fun. I'm just in, like, these kids are just like in my house, and I'm just playing with them.
Wow, that is so powerful. It was something you had just said. You said that you were responsible for your joy.
Yes.
You s- and that is so powerful because a lot of times I know in relationships, sometimes women, but men do it as well. They hand off that responsibility. They hand it off to say that I'm with you so you can make me happy. And when you don't make me happy, then I'm upset. There's a problem. You've done something wrong. And men do the same thing. They get married and they expect their partner to make them happy. But I
Yeah.
think you just found the key that you have to be able to make yourself happy. You have to be able to make yourself happy alone. Because if you can do that, you can be happy around anyone. And
Yes.
being happy is infectious. And
Mm.
people will start to just be. Do you know if you go someplace and start laughing? Do you know everyone else sooner or later will start laughing with you and they won't even know what you're laughing about? This is a true thing. And I
I
love the
agree.
way if you follow your story coming from where you did and what you were around growing up. You had two loving parents, but the environment that you grew up in led you to seek out that same environment because that was normal. But
Mm.
then you found your way out of that. And instead of hopping into another relationship, what a lot of people do, they just hop into another relationship thinking that maybe that one didn't work, but the next one will. But you found a really good set of friends that allowed you to really think about what's been going on. And then that enabled you to find yourself and realize that you had the power, that the power was always in you to be happy.
Yes, that is the point. That understanding of they are their own generator of their joy. They are um their own person to be responsible for their own happiness, like nothing else outside of them. Because when you start depending on something else that is outside of you to feel stable or to feel happy, okay, then that's really a time for you to like stop. And my message is that in the morning is such an important time, because that's when your brain is at the cleanest slate.
Yeah.
It's between that delta wave when you just wake up in the morning and theta state when you're like groggy, and that's what scientists call the hypnotic state. And so whatever seed that you plant in that state, that's going to be the tree that grows throughout the day. So when you wake up and you feel that, oh, I'm going to have fun today by doing something that I love,
Yes.
right? And that's going to be the tree that grows throughout the day. It's going to be fun, fun, fun. It's going to be blessing, blessing, right? It's going to be a fun day. Um, and it's the same if you think about the problems from yesterday,
Oh.
right? That's what's going to grow throughout the day. Why would you do that to yourself? And that's the morning. And so, and another thing is also how when you keep doing this, when you keep doing something that gives you fun and joy, you are healing yourself. You're healing your nervous system, because so many of us are so caught in this life of expecting stress and like some tension, right? That's the culture that we've been conditioned to, right? It's like all the hustling and the grinding, and that's what we feel that what life is supposed to be. But what if your life is just like all fun and joy, and that's what you're expecting, and your nervous system would start to calm down, and that changes your personality, and that changes the way that you respond to things. Instead of like expecting things to turn out like the worst, you expect things to just chill, and the way you respond to people, the way you interact with people, that's going to just be calm, and you can see things with so much more clarity, right? That's what happens with regulated nervous system.
I love
Yeah.
that.
And so
I
you
love that.
are staying away from overwhelm and stress and tension. And instead, you know, you you just filled with fun and joy and peace. you know, Yeah, that's when you start planting all that idea first thing in the morning, because your brain is the most malleable, the most impressionable. So that's why.
I love
Um,
that. I love that. I love the way you broke that down because you're absolutely right. If you wake up in the morning thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a terrible day," then you're manifesting that. You're saying how you want the day to go. Oh my goodness!
exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
and you're a motivational speaker, and I completely understand, like, like the way that you like how you're also um planting this idea in your clients on when you set a certain energy in your body, then that's what you're attracting, right? When you wake up stressful, rushing here and rushing there, expecting it's like,
Yes.
oh, or when you listen to the news, right? It's like, oh, all the terrible things are going to happen.
Yes.
Then you know what? That's what you're attracting. But what if the first thing in the morning that you're cultivating, the energy that you're generating is of joy and fun and peace and um you know, at some point, that becomes your personality. That becomes your genetic expression. And everything that's good, everything that's fun and joyful is attracted to you instead of, like your old self. That's all about, yeah, whatever old world, that is of stress and tension that we're familiar with. And I
Yes.
feel that that is how we could change ourselves. And when we change ourselves, we are changing our world. Um, we change the way that we interact with situations around us, with the people around us. We're creating this, a different world, a peaceful, joyful world around us. And that's how we're, expanding that, right? Because we're giving, like, I don't know, like a different role model, a positive role model to everybody else around us. And I kind of feel like that's how I became a better parent, better friend, a better like for everybody, a better everything for everybody, because I changed the inside of me. I changed my spirit by setting that intention of being more joyful and happier. And yeah, and that's how I generate peace in my world.
I love that. I love that. Well, I can tell you, I've learned a lot. I have learned a lot of takeaways from our conversation today. The whole health and fitness. You better believe I'm going to be listening to more music in the morning. That's I can. As a matter of
And
fact,
then,
now I can't wake up. I can't wait to get up tomorrow and have my music playing. Get up and maybe do some push-ups or something. Get my blood pumping. But more importantly, I'm going to be thinking about positive. I'm not going to let any negativity enter into my mind. I'm going to think positive. Tomorrow's going to be a wonderful day. And I'm actually going to think about our conversation because you have really laid it out, the game of life. It's about joy, it's about health, it's about self love, it's all those things together. But Jenny Lee told you, and she was on somebody you should